by the time I got to writing this study and creating the Hagios Study, I said, wow, like 20 plus years of my professional career life have all led to this moment. I mean, the USC Masters in Writing that I did, time I learned multimedia and directing and storytelling, web design, graphic design, like just all my years sort of culminated in this moment of being like, I like all the talent I needed to do this was there.
Hello and welcome to the BuddyBoss podcast, where we dive deep into the strategies that will help you build, launch, and grow your online communities, your courses, and your memberships. I'm your host, Jason Broderick, Marketing Manager and Head of Content here at BuddyBoss. If it's your first time here or you just haven't gotten around to it yet, do me a favor, click that subscribe button below this video, then click that bell icon to make sure you keep up to date with all of the latest content here at BuddyBoss. In today's episode, I'm joined by Kristina Romero from the Hagios Study. The Hagios Study is a series of Bible studies with a companion mobile app designed to provide a dynamic experience through the written word, audio, and visual meditations. Kristina tells us about how past experiences with Bible studies that she didn't think were working was the inspiration to create a study that was a beautiful and transformational immersive learning experience. How her expertise running a WordPress agency with her own events and courses led her to be brought on by GoDaddy to develop their new eLearning hub and the challenges that they're facing through its development. And we discussed the role that ego plays in early stage entrepreneurship, and what does humility in business look like, and can it still be profitable? Let's dive in. Kristina, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. So for people who don't know, tell everybody a little bit about what is the Hagios Study, who is it for, and what does it do for them?
Oh, wow. Right away. The Hagios Study is really kind of a unique way of taking something like a physical copy, like a book. I actually have it like right here. And then creating a whole different experience on an app. It was inspired by, in 2017, my husband and I went to Israel and Palestine. And it was this just amazing experience, this pilgrimage. And I thought, gosh, if I could capture that in some kind of form, a media, and everyone could have this type of experience, that would be really cool. That's kind of where I went with it. So it's like a study, like a scripture study, but then people go on the app and they get audio and visuals to kind of make this journey for them. It begins, the first one out is the Beatitudes in Francis of Assisi. So taking people through Israel, like the Mount of the Beatitudes in Galilee, and Assisi, Italy. And the music is written by the Vigil Project, who's this amazing, talented group of musicians. And all of that is free on the app, and then people just buy the book. So yeah, it's meant to be this really unique type of experience for people to go a little bit deeper in the spirituality and their faith, and also create a type of community, because the app has the ability to do that as well, as you guys know, because it's the BuddyBoss app platform.
For sure. So as somebody who grew up sort of like Irish Catholic, very much in the sort of traditional Irish Catholic sort of faith, but also knowing that there are many of our listeners out here who certainly aren't of the Christian faith, certainly aren't of Christian denomination, my understanding is that this is a study of a particular subsection of teachings that are found in the Bible, that you have sort of decided, hey, I want to, these particular areas that I'm interested in, I want to sort of do some studies around those or dive deeper into those particular areas. Am I sort of getting that right?
Yes, I try to make this not particular to any, of course, I mean, it's the Bible, right? So it's a Christian focused type of study. But I think everybody can pull something out of it, especially the teachings of Jesus. A lot of people who aren't even Christian will be like, I love the teachings of Jesus. So it makes them better human beings, and it makes them motivated to do good, which is a beautiful thing. So as far as like, I'm Catholic, but I wrote it for all Christian denominations. So I keep really sensitive to a lot of that. And also Francis of Assisi, especially the first one, is so beloved by so many people of all religions, most especially in Islam, because Francis of Assisi had such a sensitivity to Muslims, which was, like people didn't know. So there's just kind of a neat little thing, especially in this first study, that I feel like a lot of people, regardless, will get something out of it. But my point is, I really want people to come in and have maybe something that looks just like words on a page, something like you said, that they're raised with, that they don't even really know how to practically apply to their lives. And it just be presented in a more real way. Like it actually, they could feel it, they could see it, they could taste it. It just becomes more alive. Like that was my goal. That's how I felt going over to Israel and Palestine. And I was like, this is an amazing experience. If I could just get that a little bit inside this book/app experience, I think it'll help. And the music meditations and the visuals, the people who produce them for us went over to Assisi, went over to Israel. They have all of this video footage that's in there as well. So it's just kind of a neat thing I think can be appreciated by a lot of people at different stages of their lives, depending upon where they are. And then I hope to move forward with a bunch of different ones. I have them all lined up. I'm doing one right now on the prodigal son and St. Augustine. And these are all big figures that are not particularly controversial, which is a little easy. They're just good. They had good people and they had good thoughts. So it's a little easier to write than trying to, I'm not trying to be like divisive anyway. It's supposed to be unitive. So that's the goal, is I really want to create a lot of unity and people inspired to do good.
So talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned that the genesis of this particular project came out of a sort of a trip that you took, like a pilgrimage or traveling to a particular part of the world. Tell me a little bit about before that. What was your sort of connection to the faith world like? Did you run anything kind of like this before? Or, are you part of any other communities? Or is this kind of like your first venture into that, into sort of the like doing it yourself kind of end of the spectrum?
So I have a lot to past that I've done. So before this time, I had run a web agency for 12 years, a very tech web dev community. Got so involved in the web dev community that I started teaching a lot of how to build websites, how to run a business, and got connected with a business training group where they used the BuddyBoss theme. That's how I got introduced to BuddyBoss. They were using it for the training platform. And so I was on the email list. And then I spun off and did my own training. So I do have a training on the side where I'm in that sort of creative media technology world where I'm teaching web agencies how to build better businesses. But I just love side passions. I mean, yes, my faith is important to me. It's like you do the thing that you do to make money, although I do love what I do. But then there's this passion on the side that just makes you want to get out and get that out in some way. So I just had no idea how to make an app. I was like, I know how to build websites. I know how to build a WordPress website. I know how to use the BuddyBoss theme to do that. I had no idea how I was going to do the app piece of this. Just absolutely clueless. I'd reached out to a couple of my colleagues. They're like, well, we're not really in that space. We're more of a different space. And it was like in those couple weeks that I got the email from BuddyBoss that they were launching the app platform. I was like, I might have been one of the first people to sign up because I was like, oh, I'm in. And I was literally writing this at the time. It was perfect timing. I knew that I could do that. I knew WordPress and I knew what you guys were doing. Like I understood immediately what you guys were doing. And I was like, this is insane. I can't believe I can get this app for this price. And I don't want to like say it too much because I'm like, I'm trying to tell people, I'm like, you don't understand what you're getting for this price. Cause I know I'm in that industry. I know. So I finally get my, the first people in whatever that was, February of 2021, I think. And, yeah, I was one of the first to get the platform. And so it was perfect. I had just finished. I started loading in. The music team was working on it and I was launching that pretty quickly. So my whole experience in the technology world really helped me see the value immediately and being like, this is like a gift from God. BuddyBoss, you were like a gift from God. It was amazing. It was like really divine. So I'm so appreciative of that because I don't know how I would have done this without that platform. I mean, this is a side passion project. It's not like I've got tons of money rolling in to fuel this. So this was amazing. And then we live in a world now where we can create and we can put it out. So it's so exciting to do this podcast because I'm like, I scream from the rooftops. I love the BuddyBoss app. It is the best thing for us content creators to have. It is underrated, 100% underrated. And I love it.
There's a couple of avenues I want to dive a little bit further down into. The first is, tell me just before I sort of dig into the weeds a little bit, is the project a for-profit project? Is it do people buy access? Is it like a membership subscription? Like, what's the story there?
The app, everything that's in the book is on the app, 100% free. So the study is 100% free digitally on the app, the music, access, everything. People just register for free. The book, the physical copy of the study is such a different kind of experience where you can journal and you can write questions and things like that. So that's available on Amazon, on our website. And so it costs money to print, so it costs money to buy. But everything that goes from this book goes right into the next one. So no, I'm not making any profit off of it. I've considered turning it into a not-for-profit just because it's never, I've always said it's never going to be that for me. It's a passion project. It's never going to be a way for me to earn a lot of money. My mission with this is different than that, and it'll never be that.
That's the reason I asked you that is just because you're probably the first guest I've had who is doing that, and it not as a for-profit entity, if that makes sense. Because you and I both know that there is an awful lot of work involved in that. It's an awful lot of time and energy and effort, and probably the fact that you have a technical background as well meant that you didn't necessarily need a developer to help you or whatever. But it's really, I guess, refreshing to speak to somebody whose passion project is so much a passion of theirs that the end result isn't something that you have to buy. Obviously, I understand the paper book, which is more of a workbook type, engaging type thing, that has a cost. And so you need to buy that or whatever. But, as a whole, that it's not a for-profit, it's not an enterprise for profit. That's, I think you're the first person I've spoken to who's running a BuddyBoss project, definitely a BuddyBoss app in a not-for-profit world.
Yeah, maybe. I'm very fortunate. Even right now, I'm assisting GoDaddy in building a training academy for them. So I'm working. Part of my job during the day is going on as a consultant and building their training library for web professionals. I had a very great, successful career with the agency, and I sold that in 2020 just as I was starting this. And I still have the training. So it's like I'm very fortunate in that it doesn't have to take on a for-profit model. And also, I just feel disingenuous with anything in this space being a for-profit model. Like, I always cringe a little bit when, there's some wonderful apps out there that are in this space that cost money. And it's just, I understand the technology behind it, right? So I understand why they do cost money, and I get that. But I don't know. I can't do it. Can't make it that way.
So then I have another follow-up question as it relates to that, which is, what's your experience, or rather, to rephrase that, you must have some experience of other people's studies of similar topics and other works that are similar to yours that maybe led you to believe that you could do something different, or that you could improve, or that there was something missing. Could you tell me a little bit about that? Like, what other studies exist out there in the world of this type of stuff? And was that a catalyst for you to go and create something different, and how?
Yes, I do. I grew up, I didn't grow up Catholic. I grew up sort of like a non-denominational Christian, different in and out of different denominations. So I come from from a lot of different perspectives. Outside of the Catholic space and in the other kind of Protestant Christian space, there is big business in this area. I remember looking up one particular company as I was starting this to kind of get an idea. And they had made $33 million in their fiscal year. So yeah, I have seen a lot. And there's people who feel a little bit more like they're in it for the money and it's their career, and it's just, I fight against every urge of that. I just don't want it to be that. And I don't find that attractive when it's becoming someone's career and their livelihood. at that level that they're looking to make a lot of money off of their content for like a church space or a mission space. I cringe a little bit. So yes, I'd seen a lot, and I saw a lot of what I didn't think was working. And I'm just one person, and this is one study, and I have this big vision of a lot of them and it being something that reaches a lot of people. So maybe this podcast will resurface in 10 years and they'll be like, look at that. She did it.
Look at that. She's made $33 million this year. Look at that.
Right. No, I'd be giving it all away. So yeah.
So one of the other things I wanted to ask you about that you mentioned is to sort of take a little handbrake turn, but sort of reverse on ourselves a little bit, which I'm going to ask you a few questions if that's okay, but if it's not okay, you can stop me and we'll move on, is I didn't realize that you were involved with the GoDaddy educational stuff.
Well,
I didn't know that.
It's breaking news here because I haven't formally announced it. So
okay.
We'll break the news here on the BuddyBoss app.
That's awesome. So I guess I'll ask any questions I have, and the point at which the NDA kicks in, you can sort of put your hand up and say, sorry, I can't go any further. I assume because it's GoDaddy that it's a fairly large scale enterprise, a fairly large scale. It's not just like they're launching a little side thing. You know, does this education hub already exist? Is it something that you are one person who is adding content? Like, tell me a little bit about the sort of the mechanics of it.
Yeah, it did not exist. And they reached out and have brought me on to help build it from scratch. So that's where we are now. You know, with the bigger companies, it's a lot slower of a build than when you're one person and you're churning something out, right? There's a lot of stuff involved. So I believe we'll probably launch a little bit of this more beta version of just getting some of these courses out towards the end of the year. And then next year, you'll begin to see something way more formal around that. So it's been a great experience so far. I love e-learning. I think I could stay in school forever. I just love the environment of education. My husband is in education. So it's always something that I love, and being able to get into it in the last 6 years with the e-learning space, I've learned a lot of, I think, what works and what doesn't work. I've applied that to my side passion here with the Hagios Study, applied that to my training, and I'm so excited to be able to step into GoDaddy and apply that there. Because with GoDaddy, I have an opportunity, and again, I feel very altruistic on this podcast, but it's to just present these courses and this learning to a wide audience for free, for basically just educating an audience. And you can do that under a product flagship, which is nice because they get their revenue someplace else. So you have an opportunity to really give a lot of advice and education and not have to put a big price tag on it because there's something else being bought and sold. So that's been very exciting. And I hope it comes out and people really love it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. I'll certainly be diving deep into it after this, after hearing about it, and I'll want to know all about it, and I'll want to cross all NDA boundaries with you at some point when we're not sort of talking about it publicly. Could I ask you a little bit? I guess I don't quite know the scale of your involvement. Like, are you in charge of it? Are you at the head of a particular area of it, or whatever? But could you tell me a little bit about, like, what are some of the challenges that a huge organization like GoDaddy, who have, for the sake of argument, an endless budget to put towards something like this, and the possibility for it to be enormous in scale reasonably quickly, what are some of the challenges that they've faced or that you've faced in deciding what types of content should go out, deciding which audience segments to target, and like how you've come upon the decisions that you've kind of made? Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So working with a corporate environment, you kind of step into some advantages because they have done a lot of research on who they're trying to target. They have full teams devoted to that. So you have access to a lot of that. You know who you're speaking to right away, which is really good. And they also have a lot of built-in initiatives. So there's things that they're working toward. And so although it's like a pro and a con. So the pro is the initiatives are there. So it's really easy for you to identify how you're trying to fit something into an initiative. But then it's a con because if it doesn't fit into the initiative, you're probably not moving forward with it. Yeah. Yeah. So there's that. And for me, I've never been in a corporate environment. My husband's been working in a corporate environment for over 15 years. So I've learned a lot watching him. And so stepping into it, I had to really just look and listen and just, learn how it works and who's in charge of what and how things move. And you don't, when you're an entrepreneur, you tend to just make these decisions yourself. You tend to cross a lot of lines in terms of, I'll do that. When you're in a corporate environment, you have to realize where you are, your role, and who you reach out to do their job and for them to do their job. So you have to just kind of let go of a lot of that. And you have to know that it's slow builds, Mm-hmm. So that's the challenge, is just knowing it takes a while, and you just hang in there. And we've been creating content just to have a lot to be able to launch. Right now we haven't had to make too big of those decisions, but they'll come up quick.
With the GoDaddy course educational arm, has there been a focus on a community aspect to that, on sort of student engagement with courses, not just in taking lessons and leaving? Is there a group of people who are focusing on that too? Or tell me a little bit about how that's working.
So I come from the experience of running a training program that I know you can't offer education without community. It's huge. And I make sure I keep that in my conversation at all time, because accountability is everything when it comes to actually taking action. To me, I'm like, what good is a course if someone goes through it and they do nothing with it? You have to inspire them to take action. And a lot of times they're not right at the time of their life to do it, or they're too scared, or they don't understand. And just all of these things are supported by community. Community is super important in e-learning. Side note, I did end up getting a certificate in church history, or a certificate theology in church history from Notre Dame, and not to knock them in any way. And they have changed their e-learning model. And I did write a few emails, so I don't know if I'm responsible for that, but it was you need more community. So I know how important it is as a learner and as an instructor. But the thing that's challenging is with a corporate environment, especially, is they have a vertical for community. They have a vertical for community with the web professional market, and the person who's really in that is such a good friend of mine, and probably the one responsible for me being in GoDaddy. So there is that, and it's finding a way to bridge them together. That will be my challenge and our challenge, and those who are working on this project. So. But that is 100% my goal.
Great.
And I bring up a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. I think that was the very first thing that sort of jumped into my head as soon as I was like, oh, GoDaddy, you're creating all these courses. I wonder how good their community is going to be. I wonder how, are there going to be two sort of spines that are given equal treatment or whatever? So that's, really interesting to hear how that's panning out. Because also in my head, I was thinking, well, I know they already will have or do have a community that was nothing to do with the courses. So are they, are you bringing them together? Are they going to be working in parallel? Or, so some of those things are the sorts of things that we grapple with daily inside BuddyBoss, and our customers are grappling with all the time. And sort of our product is built around those two things, being symbiotic, yes. Which I find many other entities, they sort of are two separate arms. You know what I mean? When you decided that you wanted to, you went on your trip, on your pilgrimage, this sort of notion, you were inspired to go and create the Hagios Study. What were some of the initial challenges that you faced when you were getting started that maybe slowed you down, or maybe stopped you from getting started quicker?
I don't think I would have been able to get started if I didn't have the technology from the BuddyBoss app, because I didn't want to just make a book. I just didn't want to make a study. And so that was the biggest hurt. Once that came out, I was like, all right, I can move forward with this. The other was how to actually create an experience that felt immersive, and finding the visual project solved that as well. Benjamin, who wrote the music for the meditations, it's just like, he's a genius. And I'm like, I know I'm not paying you enough for what you're worth. This is beautiful. So money is always a limitation. I don't, I had sold my agency, so I had like a little bit that I could apply to this, but that was all my own money. It's all been my own money. So, it's great. And when it gets out there and like a church decides to do it, they'll buy 50 copies at one time and things like that. So I can tell the longer it's out, the funding will be there for the additional things for the next study. The music is just the biggest investment for me. All my time is donated. So it's just time and money. I've got 4 kids. Time is a hot commodity. I don't got a lot of it. and all the other things I'm doing. So I juggle quite a bit. But when I sit down to actually work on it, my heart comes alive and I'm like, I want to do this all the time. But it's just not revenue generating in that way. So I can't really be, unless there's some beautiful angel investor that comes along and says, you know what, do it all the time. Here's the money to do it all the time.
Love it. No. Hopefully there's one of you listeners out there is interested. You know where to go to get in touch. So tell me a little bit then about in terms of timeline. This was like early on in the app release kind of cycle. So tell me a little bit about, how did the pandemic affect your plans? How did it affect your, did it sort of accelerate the need for something like this, or did it have the opposite effect? Tell me a little bit about that.
I think it's probably the reason it's here. I had made the decision to sell my agency before COVID hit. I had already been kind of talking a little bit about about it with some of the people I was interested in working with to see if they would buy it. So when COVID hit and I reached out to that person, it wasn't like, oh, she's selling it because COVID hit. It was already a natural progression of that conversation. So it was perfect timing. It was only a couple months into the pandemic that we were working with a lawyer and getting all the contract together. And I sold it. And it was the night I signed the dotted line that I had the idea for this study. It just came to me. So it was written during COVID. I would wake up, I was homeschooling my 4 children because they were not in school. And I would wake up at 5 a.m., write for about an hour and a half. The kids would wake up and I'd do the homeschooling and do the little bit of my training program and keep that. The beautiful thing about courses is my training program would still sell because it's still a course and people still buy it. I didn't have to do too much on that front during it. Just a couple of, webinars here and there and stuff. So that was my pandemic experience. It was writing this early in the morning and juggling the children and the training program that I had. And it was a good, I think, like a way to keep me calm and sort of in the right space during that very difficult time. And everyone experienced it different. Small children are a lot during a time where you can't go anywhere.
Especially 4 of them. I have a single cat and he's a lot,
Yeah, times 4.
So yeah, I know, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the when it was written. And I often wonder, not being able to, there's nothing on the calendar, right? We couldn't go on a trip. We couldn't go anywhere. I wasn't going out. So maybe that intense focus of just always staying home and waking up at 5 really helped write this first one and get it out. And there was a lot of research involved, so much research involved. The Life of Francis of Assisi, I read all the original sources. And they're very, I got the original sources in book form, and there are 3 of them, and they're this thick. And every time I'd finish, one, there was about 4 sources I pulled from. And I just oh my gosh, I got to read that. I have to get another source. And it was just a lot of research. It was 6 months of research to where I could actually feel like legitimate writing about it. So
yeah. Feel like an authority on the subject.
Yeah, right.
A
Exactly.
lot of
I'm not just
digging.
copying and pasting something someone else said, but actually reading it and being really transformed by how selfless his life was and how he loved others and how he loved creation and how he just gave of himself, which is such a great model for all of us.
And also, I guess, like, regardless of the topic that we're talking about, the pinnacle of being an authority on a topic is not just your ability to repeat or to you know, it's your ability to give new insight into a topic based on things that you've gathered from elsewhere, based on all of the sources that you're looking at, to go, okay, what am I adding to this discussion? You know, what's my take on this, or what questions can I ask that nobody's ever asked before that are, you know, that you can sort of go away and think about for yourself, you know, that kind of thing.
And my thing is it's like everybody has that inside of them. So if you'll read, like, I'm not teaching anybody anything. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a pastor. I don't want to be that. I want to present those things to and say, what are you seeing? So exactly that. I've got like early church fathers excerpts. I've got all of that excerpts from the original source. Like, here it is. Like, isn't it cool? Like, I'm seeing this. Are you seeing this? And that's how I approach it. It's like, that's how I feel. I feel like everybody needs to have their take. And that's what this does. I don't want to be a teacher. I want to help walk alongside, being like, look at this, isn't this cool? So, that makes sense. Anyone who does the study will understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't looked, you know, at the wording or whatever, but I get it. Like, you know, for me, certainly the best teachers I've ever had are not necessarily the ones who dictated the best lessons. They're the ones who asked the most, or asked the best questions of me, or they're the ones who sort of opened the doors in the right way for me to explore myself, you know? So for the people who are watching who maybe they are starting a side project, or they are, you know, they have a side passion that they really want to sort of begin, or maybe they're at the kind of the early points in their sort of discovery of their journey, as, you know, somebody who's both excelled in a side hustle like the Hagios Study, but also, you know, has a great wealth of experience as an agency owner and a business owner and in the technical world, and now has this whole other breadth of experience in the sort of education and sort of e-learning space. If I'm starting a passion project, what would you say? What's some good advice that you could give people who are in the really early stages of a passion project?
Okay, so something I hear a lot is nobody else is doing this. Don't just say that. Like, it takes a lot of humility to actually go out and seek out if someone is actually doing it. And a lot of people will say no one is doing this because they are not in the space to see it. You know, they're not in that target market, or they're not hanging out in those water cooler areas, and they're not seeing what's going on. I hear that a lot from a lot of people who want to start businesses. No one is doing this. And it's like, go out, put yourself on email lists, go out into those target markets, go immerse yourself in that space. And then if you say no one else is doing it, all right, you know, then you've determined that. But take the time to research what is going on in those spaces and what you'd be offering that is maybe different. And it doesn't have to be different. That's the crazy thing. It doesn't have to be different. It just can be another option for people. So you don't need to make it like, oh, super, it's not creative enough. It's not different enough. It just may be another option for other people in that space. We sure know that there's a lot of that. So that's the first thing. If you're saying no one else is doing this, do your research first to make that case. And then the second is it's time or money. So you just might have to learn how to do these things. You know, I find by the time I got to writing this study and creating the Hagios Study, I said, wow, like 20 plus years of my professional career life have all led to this moment. I mean, the USC Masters in Writing that I did, time I learned multimedia and directing and storytelling, web design, graphic design, like just all my years sort of culminated in this moment of being like, I like all the talent I needed to do this was there, but it was over 20 years. So, sometimes you don't have that skill and you do have to hire that skill and you do have to have the money to do that. And then sometimes you just want to pull on your life experience, like what skills you already have. And I think people don't realize they probably already have what they need to do a minimum viable product, of that thing, and getting enough interest in it to then maybe get the funding you need to hire people who can't, with what you're not able to do yourself. Pushing the button as well, just doing it.
I love that. To sort of add a comment onto your first point, which I thought was very insightful. One of my favorite books is The Ego is the Enemy. And it's a book about like how many of the decisions that we make in life and many of the ways we approach things in life are wrapped up in our ego, even if we don't realize it. And obviously, as I'm sure you have done as well as an agency owner, having spoken to lots and lots of people with really great ideas, and very often the default place is, why is this a good idea? Oh, because nobody else is doing this. This is genius because nobody else is doing this. And for me, I almost find the notion that nobody else is doing this. I guess I find it wrapped up in ego in two ways. One, it's protective because it means they didn't have to do the exploratory work to really seek if somebody else is doing this or not. So it's sort of like it's a get out of jail free card on that note. But on the flip side, for me, it's also a little bit. It's a bit wrapped up in the self, like this idea is so good because I'm the first person to have come up with this idea.
Yes.
And I often found maybe it's not quite correct to say that there's more humility in the reverse, but I guess I'm going to go down that track anyway. I often found the more humble people in my existence were often the ones to say, you know what, there's a lot of people doing this, but I think I might be able to improve a little bit. Or, right. I think I might be able to adapt, or I think I might be able to do better. And I think that takes a little bit, it's a different sort of fortitude and a different sort of strength to be able to say, there's lots of this out here, and I'm going to be different because of this, or because here's why, or because I have this insight.
Jason, you said it beautifully. And it's a topic for another time, but what does humility in business look like? That is, we are operating in a hustle culture. We're operating in a big ego culture. What does humility look like in business? And what is, especially now in a world where it's all about you and your face on that social, it's a big question. And I have to say I felt convicted in this study because that Francis of Assisi, if you want to give him like a synonym of who he is, it's humility. And again, like we were talking in the beginning of the hour about people doing the study who maybe aren't Christian, if anything they could take away from it, it'd be like an example of humility and what that looks like. And how do I apply that to my life?
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have further chats for sure. What does humility in business look like? And my addendum to that would be, what does humility in business look like? And is it still profitable? Can humility be profitable? That's
like that where I think is going back to that community topic that you were talking about, because that's really what it is. It's realizing you're always maybe not the right person, or you maybe shouldn't be doing that, and someone else should be coming in and doing that collaboration, that community, and building something together with other people. That's like where my mind went when you said that. So it goes back to that community we were talking about too.
Yeah, I love that. You've just sent my mind on another place now, which is the notion that like the method doesn't have to be the message. And the reason I'm bringing that up is you mentioned like this idea of community, and that I might not be the right person to deliver a message, or I might not be the right vehicle to help somebody with a particular thing. And it just reminds me of somebody, Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm sure you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, who basically has all of these notions that he thinks are amazing and thinks everybody should, adopt or whatever, and came to a realization, hang on a minute, some people don't like me as a person. Some people don't like the way I deliver my message. Some people don't like my attitude. They don't like my content. So if I want my message to be delivered, I need to divorce myself from the message a little bit. And you may have seen, but he's created a series of cartoon characters to represent each of his kind of core messages, so that he can sort of address children without it having to be Gary Vaynerchuk and his swearing and his whatever,
potty mouth.
You know what I mean? Yeah, potty mouth. And that to me is an example of like, oh, okay,
that is
like,
an example.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, I do see humility in Gary Vee's content. Surprisingly, I don't know if other people can see that, but I do see humility in his content, which is his latest content, his current content that I see. So it's you're right. It was that moment of realization too. I'm sure he's had a lot of moments in his life that he could speak to better, but yeah,
no doubt. Maybe I should get him on. Good luck.
I know,
not a chance. So tell me then, what's been the biggest highlight or the biggest benefit to you personally of building the Hagios Study?
Oh, goodness, the virtues that come out of it. I mean, I say I'm a different person than when I started it. We talk a lot about like Jesus's teachings, whether you're a Christian or not, and just I think it just changed me. I feel a little less. We were talking about business and ego. I feel a lot less of that. I feel a lot more focused, calm, peaceful. Just I feel like I got most out of it than anybody who maybe goes through it. It's been a challenge because I have an experience as an actor. And it was me in front of the camera in the training programs as a coach. It's me in front of the camera. I just didn't want to be like me in front of the camera with this. And so I struggle to market it because I don't want to be profiting off of that same sort of approach that has worked in Hollywood and in the web dev industry. So it has made me try. I'm not saying I'm a humble person in that sense, but I strive for humility. And so it has helped in that way that I think I just move through life a little bit differently. I move through my day a little bit differently. And it's wonderful getting my creativity out, and it's wonderful digging into this stuff. For the next study, it's about St. Augustine, and I'm reading his book, The Confessions, which is taught in universities, secular universities. Like it's taught because it's such an amazing piece of literature. Augustine's Confessions, written in the late 4th century. And I'm getting into it. I don't think I ever would have read it, and it's changing me, and again, it's like, there's so much work that can be done on a person, and I'm like changing me in areas I didn't know I need to be changed. So it's cool. It's exposing me to a lot of really cool stuff. And again, that's all, I'm just saying me. It's all changing me. I guess that was the question.
That was the question I asked you, because the next question I asked you is, what's the equivalent of that for your users and for your members? What's been the biggest benefit to your community and your members and your users of discovering the BuddyBoss platform through which to kind of deliver that to them?
Oh, so this has been fun because people find me from random places, which is fun. And I've got this lovely guy I'm going to shout out to Deacon John. I don't know Deacon John. I've never met him, but he found it, and very early on. And he's this retired guy in, I think, Wisconsin. And just every now and again, we'll donate like $25 when he can to the mission to support it. And he just has all these lovely things to say. 100% says the app lends to the experience, this beautiful pilgrimage, this beautiful inner immersive experience. So it's little things like that you get that email and you're like, oh, I don't know you. You found me randomly. You got so much out of it. And there was this huge conference here in Phoenix, a local bookstore called me and said, we'd love to sell your book at this conference. There were over 600 people there. It was a Franciscan conference, and they sold, books. I got ordered a whole bunch, brought it over, and you just see the reaction of people just really loving this totally different experience that they've never had, and going on and signing up for the app, and then it's so easy to use. And that's the beautiful thing, is I got the additional developer package to try and edit the code, but your roadmap is faster than me learning React. So it's every time I want to do something, I look at the roadmap. I'm like, oh, okay, it's coming up. I don't need to do this myself. And it's slowly being released. So my hope is I've got all these users on the app. I can't wait to open up the groups community feature, having them converse in groups and being able to use the app for that, because that was the goal. And so everyone's using the app right now in just that learning stage, the digital form, the meditations and all of that. But once I open up that community feature, I'm so excited. So I think that's going to add a lot to the app. And I stalk your roadmap to, make sure I have all the features.
So do I. I stalk the roadmap on a regular basis to see.
I know, right?
See how far we've moved. The releases are even too fast for me. They we end up releasing. I'm like, oh, there was a release today, and then I check 15 minutes later, and I'm like, oh wow, that was 2 weeks went by, and there was another release.
I know. So it's I had my things that I needed in order to feel confident, and so I should be doing that pretty soon. But other than that, I haven't needed to do anything to it, which is really unheard of. So that, the bug fixes come out themselves. I don't need to fix them.
Amazing. So tell me what's I guess we sort of know a little bit of this already, but what's the next big thing that you're working on? Maybe it's for the Hagios Study, or maybe not. We might have already spoken about it. Tell us what's the next big thing that you're focusing on? All
right. So goodness, so much stuff. I did write a book for the web professional community about recurring revenue. Recurring revenue is called the revenue relationship. And it's about kind of what we talked about, treating clients in a way that I don't think is being taught right now in that hustle culture, in that big ego culture, having that revenue relationship with recurring revenue. So you've got a lot of people who have subscription apps and who have subscription services. So it's a lot about building that mindset for the revenue relationship. They're investing in you with a subscription product, but you're also investing in them. So there's this ongoing relationship since it's recurring revenue. I've got that book, I know, on top of everything else. So I'll
as if you didn't already have enough things that you were doing.
I know, right?
I forgot you mentioned as well that you have no kids, nobody else to took care about. Yeah, and you're definitely not doing other projects too. Yeah,
I think sure. I have a problem, Jason. I have a problem. I just don't stop. Someone said, I so admire you. I was like, do you admire my ability to stay busy? I don't know where that comes from. So I've got the next study coming out, the Prodigal Son in St. Augustine. Trying to put that out as well. And then all the other coaching stuff that I do with WP Care Market, and hopefully with GoDaddy, we'll get to say more about what we're doing there. It is a lot. It's a lot, but again, I enjoy what I'm doing, so yeah. It's tough.
It's all interrelated. Each element helps the other element flourish, right?
Yes, Jason. I went back and I was like, how are all of these connected? And I realized that they're all connected because they're all growing community. That's bringing people together. So with the studies, it's bringing people together. I want them to be small groups, people coming together to do this. The revenue relationship and my WP Care Market training community, bringing people together. GoDaddy, bringing people together. So bringing people together for growth. I think that's the underlying thing of everything I do. So I'm rolling with that. I think that's how they're all connected.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Bringing people together. Some other company has copyrighted that phrase already. It's a shame we can't use that. So that's I'm glad you made that link between all of those things, because you're absolutely right. That sounds to me like you're the the nucleus of each of
it's my
those
North
is
Star.
bringing people
Yeah.
together. Yeah, your North Star for sure. Yeah, good way of tying that in. So tell everybody a little bit about where they can go to find more about you online, more about your projects. Tell us a little bit about where people can connect with you.
Awesome. Okay, well, we talked about a lot of my projects. KristinaRomero.com. You can get you a lot of those links. Used to be back when I was an actress, my actress site right now. And now it's just this, I don't know what, all of Kristina's projects in this website. So KristinaRomero.com. If you're a web agency owner and you do marketing and web design and web development, WP Care Market is that whole arm. And then the Hagios Study. So it's hagios.study, which I think you'll have a link to that as well for anyone who does, this is your wheelhouse. This is something you're interested in, check it out. But also you could download the app and see what I've done with the BuddyBoss app. I'm trying to be creative a little bit in how I use it in the constraints of the BuddyBoss app. But as it grows and the more of the roadmap items come out, it's feel free to download it for free. It's free on the App Store and you can check it out.
Great. That's awesome. Kristina, it was really great to have you on. It was really great to chat to you finally. I know I said at the start that I've been stalking your various projects for quite a while, meaning to pull you on the podcast. So it's great to sort of finally have you here.
Well, I'm so glad. I'm so excited to do this. This was a great interview, by the way. You did a really great job, Jason, with all those questions. Thanks for letting me ramble. But I love being able to shout about this from the rooftops. So we need to do more because more collaboration. I can just shout out more about how cool your guys' stuff is. It's just
for sure. Awesome. We'd love to have you anytime you want to come back and do an episode. In fact, we've just launched another series where it's topics rather than customer stories. And so to start with, it's just me talking about a particular topic, but I've no doubt we'll be able to get you back on to dive deep into. Yeah, in fact, I could just give you the whole series yourself and you could just run with it. Kristina, it was really great to have you on. Thanks so much for being so generous with your time.
Thank you.
Speak soon. Bye. That was Kristina Romero sharing with us how she has created an immersive and transformational learning experience for free with the Hagios Study. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to let us know, then make sure to hit that like button below, then leave us a quick comment and tell us what was the one most valuable thing that you learned from this video. That's it from me. Until next time.